Hello again and welcome back. In this lesson we're going to take a look at this raw file, this image of Maroon Lake in Colorado, and see if there's something we can do to using masking to make this an acceptable looking image. As it stands, it's not that acceptable of a looking image. Let's go ahead and open this up in Adobe Camera Raw. When we look in Camera Raw here, we can come up and take a look at our highlight warnings and our shadow warnings and notice that they are turned on. We can see that pretty much most of the image, the pixels, reside within the histogram. We've not really blown much out or blocked very many items out. In theory, what we could do then is duplicate this raw file and then on one of them process it for the sky, and then perhaps on the duplicate process it for the foreground, and then in Photoshop combine those together in such a way that we produce an acceptable image. Let's back out the bridge here, and you'll notice that right here we have one raw file, and this is a duplicate. We duplicated this original, processed it for the sky and highlights. We've renamed it. We also created another duplicate of this particular raw file, processed it for the foreground, and then saved it as it with a new name. What we can do here is select these two by control clicking on them, run over here to Tools, drop down to Photoshop, run over to Load Files into Photoshop Layers and click on it. These two images will now open up in Photoshop in layers. There will not be a background copy, it will just be two layers. Our job will be to use a mask to combine these two layers together in a very acceptable way, creating a final appealing image. For my workflow, I like to put the proper looking sky on top, so I'm going to take this layer and put it down here. Now I have the proper looking sky on top. I'm going to select that layer, add a layer mask to it, and now I'm going to push B on the keyboard to bring up the brush tool. Let's talk about the brush tool here for just a minute. I want to make sure I have black selected as the foreground color. I want to have a very soft brush, so I've got my hardness down to 0. And in terms of opacity, I don't want 100% opacity. I want something between 20 and 40% opacity for what I'm about to do. So we've got it at 30 here. Now we're just sizing the brush, and now I'm going to click and start painting on this mask. And I'm not painting pure black, I am painting a gray. So we're getting a blending of the layer on top and the layer below. So really what I'm doing is I'm erasing some of this top layer and getting it the bottom layer to come through just a little bit. Let's take a look at our layer mask over here. We notice that the whole thing is more or less gray, and we're getting that slow bit blending of this layer underneath to come up through. So now I'm going to do that one more time and change the size of my brush. And now I'm using the bracket key to get a little larger brush and open this up a little bit more. We can Alt and click on the mask to see it, and it doesn't have to be a perfect looking mask because we're using 30% opacity at a time, and that'll all blend in nicely. I'd like to open this up a little more up here. Just kind of keep working this back and forth. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the scroll wheel, resize my brush to a much smaller brush, and we'll just make sure we're getting these treetops to come in a little bit better too here. Work our edge. Open that brush up just a little bit more. Scroll out on the wheel, and we'll just make sure the edge is looking pretty good. Alright. Looks to me that this side really needs to come out a little bit more, so we'll bring that out by painting on that mask a bit more and darkening that down. And lastly, as I look at this, it looks to me like this area, the reflection here, is a little too strong, so I'm going to flip my colors around, zoom in on that, size my brush to fit on there, and actually paint 30% white back into here just to tone that down. We'll notice that the effect here on our mask as well. Maybe just a little bit more. We now have a nice blend of our two, let's go ahead and put that on screen, of our two images. And now we can save this off as a master file. File, save as, Rune Bells Master. Let's go ahead and save that. And now we can go over here into Bridge and take a look at all of our befores and afters. It should be down here somewhere. There it is. So here is our final image. Here is where we came from. So we started here and got to here. Not bad. Real nice improvement. So that is a way to take one raw file, duplicate it, process it for the sky, duplicate it again, process it for the foreground, then open up the two processed images, the two processed raw images, into one Photoshop document as layers, and then use masking to blend them together. Real fun. All right, talk to you next time.